Most older adults take at least one supplement every day, but some of the very pills meant to protect you are tied to dizziness, memory loss, and even higher fracture risk. That daily pill organizer you rely on might be setting you up for more harm than help. The problem is that certain vitamins don't leave your body easily. They stockpile in aging livers like leftover Thanksgiving turkey, fine at first, but trouble if it sticks around too long. In this video, I'll show you 4 vitamins seniors should avoid, and 4 that truly support strength and clarity as you age. And to understand why they matter, we need to look at how your body processes vitamins differently after 60. Why your body handles vitamins differently after 60. Why do vitamins that once supported you at 40 sometimes backfire at 65? The shift has less to do with the supplements themselves and more to do with how your body transforms over time. Aging often slows down the organs responsible for processing everything you eat or swallow. Your liver and kidneys, once powerful filters, become less efficient at breaking down substances and clearing waste. As a result, vitamins that used to pass cleanly through your system can linger longer, sometimes building up to levels that cause harm instead of benefit. Digestion also changes. With age, many people produce less stomach acid, which makes it harder to break food down fully. The lining of the intestines may not absorb nutrients as effectively either. That creates a double challenge. It can be harder to pull in the vitamins you truly need, while at the same time excess amounts of others aren't eliminated as quickly as before. The result is a narrower safety margin, where you can experience shortages of some nutrients yet toxicity from others. A common misstep here is the assumption that more is always better. What felt like a safe boost in midlife, an extra capsule or a higher dose multivitamin, can become risky later on. Since your metabolism works more slowly, those leftover vitamins don't just disappear. Instead, they accumulate quietly, sometimes for years. Early signs of this buildup might masquerade as normal aging, feeling more tired, experiencing light dizziness, even noticing changes in your heartbeat. Because the effects develop gradually, it's easy to overlook them until they become serious. A key factor in this process is the difference between water-soluble and fat-soluble vitamins. Water-soluble ones, like vitamin C or the B family, usually dissolve easily and exit the body in urine. Fat-soluble vitamins, A, D, E, and K, behave differently. They're stored in your liver and fat tissue, which means they can pile up over time. That doesn't make them automatically bad. In fact, they play essential roles. But it does mean seniors need to be more cautious with how much and how often they take them. This sensitivity gets complicated by other parts of aging too. Many seniors take prescription medications, blood pressure drugs, statins, or antacids, that can magnify how nutrients behave in the body. A dose that seems straightforward on paper may interact with one of those medications, slowing clearance further or preventing absorption. On top of that, most supplement labels are written for the average adult, not specifically for someone in their 70s with slower digestion and reduced kidney function. That gap leaves many older adults unintentionally crossing into excess territory even when they're only following the instructions on the bottle. Another issue arises when balance between vitamins is ignored. Some nutrients are meant to work in pairs or small groups. Separating them, or taking heavy doses of one without its natural partner, can tip your body in unhealthy directions. For example, calcium normally needs vitamin K2 to guide it into the right places. When that balance is lost, calcium can settle where it shouldn't. These imbalances may show up as subtle aches, unexplained fatigue, or unusual heartbeats, all things often chalked up to just aging, but in reality signs of vitamins behaving differently in an older body. It's worth pausing on how deceptive this can be. Marketing often presents vitamins as universally safe enhancers of health, as if there's no such thing as too much. But the truth is, supplements interact differently with a system that's slowing down. What once energized you can now drain you. What once supported healthy vision might create strain on your liver. Without making adjustments, seniors can slip into a pattern where the very vitamins they count on become hidden stressors on the body. That's why older adults need a new approach, one built on caution, awareness, and personalization. The safe range narrows after 60, with less room for error between enough and too much. And since accumulation happens silently, the only way to know whether your supplements are truly supporting you is to get objective feedback. The most practical step is to ask your healthcare provider about blood testing and to review every pill you take, vitamin, mineral, or prescription, with a doctor or pharmacist. That simple conversation can prevent years of harm. The bigger point is this: aging doesn't mean vitamins turn into enemies, but it does mean you can't treat them the same way you once did. Water-soluble vitamins usually clear quickly, while fat-soluble ones linger and demand extra care. Being mindful of those differences explains why certain supplements that looked helpful in midlife can become risks later on. And understanding this shift sets the stage for exploring which specific vitamins create the biggest problems as we age. Because as you'll see next, even a nutrient long praised for protecting your eyes can, in the wrong form and dose, quietly create serious challenges for your heart. Vitamin A, the eye-friendly hero that turns into a villain. Vitamin A has long been recognized as the nutrient for clear vision, strong immunity, and resilient skin. Yet after 60, the story grows more complicated. The very compound once trusted as a safeguard can begin working against older adults, not because vitamin A itself changes, but because of how it is delivered, stored, and processed in the body over time. The main issue lies with preformed vitamin A, also called retinol or retinol esters, which are commonly added to multivitamins targeted at older adults. Unlike plant-based precursors such as beta-carotene, retinol enters the body in an active state, requiring no conversion. Being fat-soluble, it is stored in the liver and fatty tissues rather than flushed out in urine each day. Imagine filling a container with no outlet. The supply continues to rise, day after day. At 30, a more efficient liver may manage this accumulation. By 65, however, slower metabolism lets each dose linger much longer, stacking up until storage becomes excess. This excess creates strain over time. A liver continually tasked with managing rising retinol levels may begin to falter, an effect that can feel like simple fatigue or reduced energy. As toxicity mounts, other symptoms may follow, such as nausea, headaches, or even blurred vision. Ironically, a nutrient celebrated for protecting eyesight may end up contributing to the very problems it is supposed to prevent, once blood concentrations move beyond the safe range. Heart health presents another area of concern. Some studies have linked chronic high intake of preformed vitamin A with disruptions in cardiac rhythm. These irregular rhythms may feel like skipped beats, fluttering, or racing sensations. While research does not suggest that every senior will experience such effects, the associations are strong enough that experts view preformed A at higher doses as an avoidable risk for those with aging hearts already under pressure from stiffening arteries or long-term blood pressure challenges. These findings do not condemn vitamin A outright, but they do highlight how excess retinol in particular may add unnecessary strain to cardiovascular health later in life. Bone health also shifts under the impact of accumulated retinol. At essential levels, vitamin A supports bone remodeling and repair. But larger amounts of synthetic retinol taken regularly have been linked in multiple studies with reduced bone density and higher fracture risk in older adults. This is not a minor detail. Fractures in the hip, spine, or wrist can permanently alter independence for seniors. What looks like an insurance policy against frailty in the form of a multivitamin may quietly increase the likelihood of brittle bones when too much preformed A is in the system. The difference between preformed retinol and provitamin A sources such as beta-carotene explains these effects. Beta-carotene acts as a kind of reserve. The body converts it into vitamin A only when needed, and halts conversion when stores are already adequate. This metabolic checkpoint is why eating orange and dark green vegetables carries little risk of toxicity. Your body has built-in brakes. Retinol, by contrast, skips those safety controls and goes straight into storage, regardless of your current levels. That is why nutrition authorities and studies often encourage meeting vitamin A needs through diet first and supplements only in moderated, careful forms. Unfortunately, many senior-formulated multivitamins still rely on preformed retinol. Manufacturers label it under names such as retinol, retinol palmitate, or retinol acetate. These are less expensive to produce and easier to measure. Yet they pass the potential risks directly onto the user, especially when combined with fortified foods like cereals, milk, or spreads that also add vitamin A. A person can unknowingly cross the daily threshold not because they are taking extraordinary doses, but because the small amounts add up silently when metabolism slows with age. The tolerable upper intake level, UL, for preformed vitamin A in adults is 3,000 micrograms, 10,000 IU, per day. This figure comes from established guidelines, and going above it consistently over months or years increases the likelihood of toxicity. But toxicity may still occur below this limit when seniors accumulate vitamin A more slowly, or in the presence of drugs that alter fat metabolism. Medications commonly prescribed later in life, statins, anticoagulants, thyroid treatments, can influence how fat-soluble vitamins behave in the body. That means even a normal supplement dose listed on the label may persist far longer in an older system, interacting in ways manufacturers do not fully account for. Because the signs of excess develop gradually, they often look like general aging, tiredness, light dizziness, bone aches, or slower recovery from illness. Connecting these dots to a daily multivitamin is not obvious. For this reason, experts recommend seniors take a closer look at their supplement labels. If the label lists retinol, retinol palmitate, or retinol acetate, it contains preformed A. The safer move is to switch to a formula relying on beta-carotene instead. A simple label check provides a practical safeguard: avoid builds of synthetic retinol, favor dietary sources, and keep within the 3,000 microgram limit. This approach does not mean eliminating vitamin A altogether. Instead, it means choosing forms that respect the body's slower metabolism. Foods such as carrots, sweet potatoes, spinach, kale, and pumpkin supply beta-carotene in abundance. When your body needs vitamin A, it converts what is required. When it doesn't, the rest remains inactive and harmless. Supplements marketed as containing provitamin A or beta-carotene follow the same logic and carry a much lower risk of toxicity. Testing is another essential step. A provider can order simple blood work to see if current vitamin A levels are in the normal range. Armed with that information, you can adjust intake with precision, either ensuring sufficiency if levels are low, or reducing unnecessary supplementation if they are already adequate. This individualized approach prevents the silent buildup that becomes harmful years later. The balance is clear. Vitamin A continues to play vital roles in vision, immunity, and skin integrity. But after 60, the line between enough and too much grows thinner. The fundamental mistake is not the nutrient itself, but the reliance on preformed, synthetic versions in high or routine doses. By shifting intake toward beta-carotene sources and monitoring levels with simple tests, older adults gain the benefits without exposing themselves to cumulative risks. With these adjustments, vitamin A remains a friend rather than an unwelcome burden. And just as with vitamin A, other nutrients that once seemed like health boosters can turn problematic when they accumulate with age. One of the most common examples is another supplement often marketed as essential for energy, but for seniors, it can quietly build up in ways that stress both the brain and other organs if it is not carefully managed. Iron supplements, the rust you don't want in your body. Iron supplements are often marketed as energy boosters, the very things seniors reach for when fatigue starts to creep in. But after 60, iron can shift from a vital nutrient into a slow-acting burden that the body struggles to clear. Instead of reviving you, extra iron has the potential to sit in tissues, building up over time in ways that quietly stress the brain, liver, and heart. For older adults, unnecessary iron can act less like fuel and more like rust slowly eating away at the body from within. Here's why this happens. During a woman's younger years, monthly cycles act like a natural safety valve, releasing small amounts of iron with every period. This helps prevent overload. For men, iron is put to heavy use in producing red blood cells during their more metabolically active years. But as the decades pass, these natural regulators slow or vanish. Postmenopausal women no longer lose iron monthly, and older men typically have lower demand for red blood cell production. The result is the same: deposits of iron begin to stockpile, and adding a daily pill on top of that only accelerates the process. Unlike water-soluble vitamins such as vitamin C, which wash out easily in urine, iron has no simple escape route once inside the body. It binds tightly to proteins and settles into tissue. Over years, these deposits drive oxidative stress, a chemical process where iron helps generate unstable molecules that damage cell membranes, proteins, and even DNA. The visible impact may appear as nagging fatigue, stiffness in the joints, or trouble concentrating, symptoms many people assume are just part of aging. Inside, the damage looks closer to pipe corrosion, where the system weakens gradually until a leak finally appears. The brain is one of the most sensitive targets. Excess iron doesn't stop at the bloodstream, it crosses into brain tissue, where it interferes with neurons. Research shows seniors with higher than normal iron levels often perform worse on memory tests compared to those with balanced levels. In some cases, iron buildup in particular brain regions has been linked to conditions that mimic early dementia. The decline rarely feels sudden, it starts as forgotten words or misplaced keys, yet the cumulative changes can erode cognitive function over years. The same rusting effect plays out in organs like the liver and heart. A liver storing too much iron becomes sluggish, limiting its ability to remove toxins from the body. Over time, this can progress to scarring, fatty liver disease, or fibrosis. The heart, when exposed to iron deposits, weakens as well, with pumping efficiency declining and electrical activity disturbed. Studies have tied excess iron to irregular rhythms and a higher burden on cardiac muscle. For seniors already managing heart conditions, the added strain can worsen symptoms they are working hard to control. So why do so many older adults continue taking iron? A large part of the problem is confusion between fatigue and anemia. Tiredness in seniors is often caused by vitamin B12 deficiency, folate deficiency, thyroid problems, or chronic illness, not a lack of iron. Yet supplement marketing has taught people to equate tiredness with low iron, encouraging widespread use even when iron levels are already more than adequate. Instead of helping, these pills can feed a problem that builds silently for years. Multivitamins add to this issue. Many energy blends or senior formulas still include iron by default. For most people over 60, this is unnecessary and potentially harmful. Even a small daily amount, perhaps 8 to 18 milligrams depending on the formula, can accumulate when paired with dietary iron from foods such as beef, poultry, beans, or fortified cereals. That means something as normal as a dinner steak plus an iron-containing multivitamin could give the body more iron than it can realistically process. Underlying genetics can complicate matters further. A condition called hemochromatosis, present in certain families, causes the body to absorb iron too efficiently. People with this trait may not know they carry it until symptoms, achy joints, fatigue, brain fog, become disruptive. Without proper testing, many mistake the signs for routine aging. In these cases, even a modest supplement or iron-fortified diet can push levels into dangerous territory. This is why doctors often recommend ferritin and transferrin saturation testing if there's a family history of iron overload or unexplained fatigue, tests that can reveal whether the problem is hidden excess instead of deficiency. That doesn't mean iron should be avoided entirely. It remains essential for carrying oxygen in red blood cells and supporting immune function. Most seniors, however, meet their iron requirements comfortably through food. Lean meats, beans, lentils, leafy greens, and fortified grains provide more than enough for healthy individuals over 60. Unless a physician identifies true iron deficiency anemia through blood work, supplements are not needed and can put organs at risk. If a deficiency is diagnosed, treatment should always be supervised. The tolerable upper limit for iron in adults is 45 milligrams per day. Exceeding this, especially without medical oversight, quickly heightens the chance of toxicity. For those who do need supplementation, timing matters. Iron should be taken away from calcium supplements, antacids, or thyroid medications, because all three can interfere with absorption. Separating them by 2 to 4 hours gives iron a better chance of being absorbed effectively. Pairing iron with a source of vitamin C, like a glass of orange juice, further improves absorption. These small timing adjustments can make therapy safer and more effective, while reducing the risk of interactions. Practical safety steps can go a long way. Seniors should start by checking whether their multivitamin contains iron. If it does, and no deficiency has been confirmed, that's a red flag worth discussing with a healthcare provider. An unexplained slump in energy should not automatically trigger self-prescribed iron. Instead, proper testing can identify whether the cause is actually iron deficiency, or whether something else, like low B12, thyroid imbalance, or chronic inflammation, is behind the fatigue. Hemochromatosis adds another layer of caution. If someone has relatives with early liver disease, joint problems, or unexplained heart failure, screening makes sense before adding any new iron source. Early testing of ferritin and transferrin saturation can reveal overload before irreversible damage occurs. With this genetic backdrop, taking iron, just in case, is especially unsafe. The takeaway is clear: for the vast majority of seniors, iron supplementation is unnecessary and potentially dangerous. Iron should only be added when blood tests confirm a genuine deficiency, and only under medical guidance. Otherwise, the mineral tends to stay behind, building up rather than clearing out, and slowly stressing organs that already work harder with age. What makes this risk especially misleading is the gap between expectation and outcome. Seniors take iron believing it will give them strength and energy, yet when taken unnecessarily, it often produces the opposite, compounding weakness, fatigue, and loss of resilience. By understanding that iron is a proof-required nutrient, one that demands a test result rather than guesswork, older adults can avoid years of harm and preserve sharper thinking, stronger hearts, and healthier livers. And iron isn't the only supplement that can backfire in later years. Other pills promoted as protective can also turn counterproductive if taken in isolation or in the wrong balance. One in particular is widely marketed as a safeguard for aging bones, but for many seniors, it may quietly raise cardiovascular risks instead of reducing fractures. Calcium pills, strengthening your bones, or hardening your arteries? Some supplements carry risks not because your body doesn't need the nutrient, but because taking it in the wrong form or by itself can cause it to build up in the wrong places. That's especially true with calcium pills, the very supplements many older adults trust to keep bones strong. For decades, calcium has been prescribed as the go-to nutrient to prevent fractures in later life. The reasoning makes sense: bones are made mostly of calcium, and thinning bones are a genuine hazard as we age. But here's the catch: taking more and more calcium in pill form doesn't automatically mean it gets directed to your skeleton. Some research links calcium supplements, especially when taken alone without supporting nutrients, to higher risks of heart problems in older adults. Instead of staying in bones, that calcium can end up hardening arteries, straining joints, or circulating in the bloodstream where it doesn't belong. This happens because calcium doesn't act alone in the body. It relies on several partners to ensure it reaches the right destination. By the time we hit our 60s, some of those partners may not work as efficiently. The gut absorbs nutrients less effectively, hormone shifts change how bones exchange minerals, and deficiencies in other vitamins and minerals become more common. When calcium lacks its critical cofactors, vitamin D3, vitamin K2, and magnesium, it's more likely to settle in the wrong tissues. A simple analogy helps. If calcium is the brick needed to build a wall, vitamin D3 is the builder that arranges those bricks on the construction site. Vitamin K2 is like the traffic officer, making sure the bricks arrive at the right site instead of clogging up the road. Magnesium acts more like the mortar, helping the finished structure stay strong and balanced. Without these partners, calcium is just a pile of bricks scattered around, creating more problems than solutions. Research explains why this misrouting becomes such a problem with age. Vitamin D3 levels drop as skin becomes less able to make it from sunlight, leaving more calcium drifting aimlessly in the bloodstream. Vitamin K2 intake often declines too, since foods like natto, aged cheeses, and other fermented products are less common in modern diets. Magnesium deficiency is widespread among seniors, partly due to medications that interfere with absorption, such as diuretics or acid-reducing drugs. Together, these factors mean that swallowing a lone calcium pill often does little for bones but increases the chance of calcium drifting into arteries, joints, or other soft tissues. The striking paradox is this: many seniors take calcium pills to prevent fractures, yet some studies suggest these supplements, when used on their own, may raise the risk of cardiovascular events. Arterial calcification, or calcium deposits inside vessel walls, is one of the strongest predictors of future heart disease. The cruel irony is that unbalanced calcium supplementation can leave bones no stronger while silently stiffening arteries and placing greater load on the heart. This does not mean calcium itself is harmful. The body still requires steady amounts every day to maintain muscle function, nerve signaling, and bone density. Yet it does mean calcium must be taken with the right companions. Vitamin D3 boosts absorption in the gut so that calcium actually enters the bloodstream in usable form. Vitamin K2 activates proteins that ferry calcium into bone tissue instead of arteries. Magnesium helps integrate calcium into bone, while reducing brittleness and supporting other essential processes. Seniors who combine these nutrients, whether through diet or supplements, are far more likely to see calcium benefit bones instead of damaging vessels. The safest strategy doesn't start with a pill at all, it starts with food. Calcium from foods like milk, yogurt, cheese, sardines with bones, tofu made with calcium sulfate, or leafy greens such as collard greens is absorbed more gradually than from supplements. This slower release gives the body time to allocate and regulate calcium properly. These foods also tend to carry other balancing nutrients, such as protein and magnesium, that make absorption safer and more effective. Fortified plant-based milks provide another option for those who avoid dairy, supplying steady calcium along with vitamin D. When dietary intake isn't enough, supplementation can fill the gap, but careful attention to dose is essential. For most older adults, recommended calcium intake is about 1,200 mg per day for women over 51 and for both men and women over 71. Men between 51 and 70 generally need closer to 1,000 mg. This total includes food and supplements combined. The upper safe limit is around 2,000 to 2,500 mg daily depending on age, and exceeding it regularly without medical supervision can increase the chance of kidney stones and cardiovascular issues. That means taking a high-dose supplement on top of a calcium-rich diet is not safer, it may actually be riskier. Splitting intake into smaller doses also matters. The body absorbs calcium best in portions of about 500 mg or less at a time. Taking one giant tablet in the morning won't be as effective as dividing calcium intake into 2 or 3 smaller servings across the day. This lowers the chance of unused calcium lingering in the bloodstream and increases the amount that actually gets built into bone. Interactions are another important consideration. Calcium can interfere with the absorption of certain medications, such as iron supplements and thyroid hormone replacements. That's why experts recommend separating calcium from these medicines by several hours to prevent interference. A simple time adjustment, morning pills versus evening supplements, can make a big difference in both safety and effectiveness. Practical monitoring is also key. Blood tests that measure serum calcium, vitamin D, and sometimes magnesium give valuable insight into what your body actually needs. Without testing, many seniors take calcium pills blindly, often layering them on top of fortified foods and already adequate diets. For those taking medications that alter nutrient absorption, like proton pump inhibitors for reflux or certain diuretics for blood pressure, reviewing supplement plans with a doctor becomes even more important. A simple adjustment, such as shifting to lower doses or adding K2, can prevent long-term complications. Hearing that calcium supplements might contribute to heart disease is unsettling for many older adults. But the evidence points not to calcium itself as a danger, but to unbalanced and unnecessary supplementation. Calcium is safest and most effective when viewed as a team player, accompanied by vitamin D3, vitamin K2, and magnesium, and preferably sourced first from diet. Used wisely, it strengthens bones without trading that benefit for higher cardiovascular risk. Ultimately, the goal isn't to avoid calcium but to manage it thoughtfully. Seniors who focus on moderate intake, supportive partners, regular testing, and food-first approaches can maintain strong bones while keeping arteries clear. In this way, supplementation becomes a precision tool rather than a hazard. It shifts calcium from being a potential liability back to being a key part of healthy aging. Yet calcium isn't the only supplement where this balance between benefit and harm matters. Even some vitamins assumed to be safe for everyone can, at higher doses, create problems that develop slowly and go unnoticed until lasting damage is done. In fact, one widely used nutrient intended to boost energy can, when taken chronically in excess, begin to attack the very nerves it is supposed to support. Vitamin B6, the energy booster that can fry your nerves. Vitamin B6 may sound like a harmless boost, promoted as a way to support metabolism and lift energy, but in older adults, too much can quietly disrupt one of the body's most fragile systems, the nerves. Known as pyridoxine, B6 belongs to the water-soluble vitamin family, which generally means excess amounts are flushed out through urine. That assumption makes people believe it's perfectly safe. But unlike vitamin C, B6 has an unusual habit of lingering when taken in repeated or higher doses. And over time, that storage can turn a nutrient required for healthy nerve signaling into a trigger for nerve injury. One reason this problem often slips by unnoticed is that B6 enjoys a reputation as a supplement that sharpens focus and improves stamina. Multivitamins, energy drinks, protein powders, and a vitality formulas frequently include it. It's easy for seniors to get a dose from multiple sources in one day without even realizing it. While modest amounts play an important role in producing neurotransmitters such as serotonin and dopamine, higher intakes begin to overwhelm nerve pathways rather than support them. When the nervous system takes on more B6 than it can manage, the early sign is often tingling in the fingertips or toes. At first, the feeling resembles a limb falling asleep. Unlike ordinary pins and needles, however, it doesn't fade after a few minutes. Numbness can follow, making fine movements harder and walking less steady. In more persistent cases, weakness and clumsiness set in. Together, these symptoms fit a condition called sensory neuropathy. The danger is that many people attribute these changes to arthritis, aging, or diabetes when in fact they may point to supplement overload. Toxicity isn't usually the product of one large dose. It grows slowly with long-term overuse. A multivitamin might contribute 20 milligrams, an energy drink another 10, and a fortified protein bar 5 more. By the end of the day, intake could already be 35 milligrams, far above the daily requirement of a senior. Multiplied by years, this creates a steady excess that gradually erodes nerve health. What makes this issue particularly concerning is that once nerves are injured, recovery is slow and often incomplete. Unlike muscle tissue, which can rebuild, nerve cells regenerate poorly. If B6-induced neuropathy progresses too far, the sensation loss and weakness may not improve even after supplementation stops. For seniors, that loss of coordination translates into falls, fractures, and reduced independence, consequences that can permanently alter quality of life. Studies have confirmed this risk. Electromyography testing in affected patients shows slowed nerve conduction, sluggish electrical signals traveling through the body. People report trouble distinguishing textures, difficulty with balance, and tremors that complicate basic tasks. The contradiction is striking. A nutrient essential in small amounts for nerve communication becomes destructive when consumed beyond what the body can regulate. The tricky part is that many supplements hide B6 in plain sight. A daily pill might label it modestly, but when stacked with a joint formula, a memory blend, and a powder drink mix, the total intake easily doubles or triples. Because symptoms appear only after long use, the damage may be well underway before anyone realizes the connection. The problem is compounded by individual differences. Kidney and liver efficiency, genetics, or medication interactions can make one person far more sensitive to B6 overload than another. Guidelines make the safe upper boundary clear. The tolerable upper intake level for adults is 100 milligrams per day. In theory, staying under that threshold prevents problems. However, recent reports show that some older adults can develop sensory neuropathy at levels lower than this, particularly with daily intakes maintained over many months or years. For that reason, most medical sources recommend avoiding high-dose B6 supplementation entirely unless there is a specific medical reason, confirmed by blood testing and prescribed by a clinician. Seniors should treat 100 milligrams per day as an absolute ceiling, not as a target. Practical safety means adding up all sources of B6 across the day. Look at multivitamins, B-complex blends, nerve health products, and nutrition shakes. Many of these use the same ingredient, pyridoxine hydrochloride, but listed under different formulations, creating the illusion of small, separate doses. The total number matters most. If the sum comes out higher than the recommended daily allowance, cut back before problems arise. In contrast, the safest way to meet B6 needs is through food. Poultry, fish like tuna and salmon, potatoes, bananas, and chickpeas provide ample amounts. These dietary sources deliver B6 gradually, paired with proteins and fibers that encourage steady use and prevent excess buildup. For most healthy older adults, just a balanced diet supplies more than enough to meet the body's needs, without risking oversupply. If unexplained tingling, numbness, or weakness sets in, it's important to bring it up with a healthcare provider and not dismiss it as aging. A clinician can run a simple blood test to measure B6 levels. If results show an overload, the most effective step is not adding yet another pill but removing the excess. Stopping unnecessary supplementation under medical guidance remains the surest way to halt the progression of damage. Early action may allow some nerve recovery, delayed attention leaves little chance of reversal. B6 still plays indispensable roles. It supports neurotransmitter production, energy metabolism, and red blood cell formation. But the message for seniors is balance, not elimination. A single modest source, whether from diet or one carefully chosen supplement, is sufficient. Stacking multiple sources in the hopes of greater energy is unnecessary and dangerous. Simplifying the pill lineup, reviewing labels carefully, and keeping total intake below 100 mg per day ensures that this nutrient works for you, not against you. The big picture shows a pattern that isn't unique to B6. A nutrient celebrated for energy and vitality in smaller doses can quietly reverse course when used without limits. For older adults, prevention matters most. By staying informed, choosing food first, and double-checking supplement labels, it is possible to avoid years of hidden harm while still reaping the real advantages of B6. And while certain vitamins can put stress on nerves when taken the wrong way, other deficiencies silently chip away at comfort, rest, and heart health. One mineral, in particular, is often missing from senior diets, and its absence leaves many struggling with muscle cramps, restless nights, and symptoms easily mistaken for aging. Magnesium, the silent ally against sleepless nights and cramps. Among the nutrients that quietly shape how well seniors feel day to day, magnesium often doesn't get the attention it deserves. Known as the silent ally, this mineral supports hundreds of basic processes, from nerve signaling to steady heartbeat and muscle relaxation. When levels dip too low, the effects are often misread as simple aging, but restoring magnesium can bring surprising improvements in sleep quality, energy, and overall comfort. Why does deficiency become so widespread after 60? One key reason is absorption. The gut becomes less efficient with age, making it harder to draw enough magnesium out of even a healthy diet. On top of that, many common medications push levels down further. Acid-reducing drugs used for reflux and heartburn limit the uptake of minerals, while diuretics prescribed for blood pressure and swelling actively flush magnesium out of the body. Seniors taking these medications for years can gradually find themselves short of magnesium without realizing that the pills in their cabinet are contributing to the problem. The signals of low magnesium are usually subtle at first. Repeated calf cramps at night are a classic example. You may go to bed feeling fine but wake up with a muscle clenched so tightly you can barely move. Persistent restlessness while trying to sleep is another. Magnesium plays a central role in muscle relaxation and in regulating melatonin, the hormone that governs sleep cycles. Without enough, the nervous system remains unsettled, leaving you tired no matter how long you stayed in bed. Palpitations are a third common clue, since electrical balance inside the heart depends on magnesium working alongside sodium, potassium, and calcium. At lower levels, heart rhythm becomes less stable, showing up as flutters, skipped beats, or pounding sensations that seem to come out of nowhere. Beyond these symptoms, low magnesium has a broader reach. Studies connect deficiency with higher blood pressure, stiffer arteries, and increased inflammation, all conditions that place extra stress on aging hearts. Research also links low levels to higher risks of insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. For seniors already juggling medical conditions, ignoring magnesium compounds the challenge. Yet, unlike some age-related problems, these consequences are reversible when intake improves. Cramping eases, sleep deepens, and palpitations settle as cells restore their balance of electrolytes. Despite these benefits, blood tests often fail to expose the shortage. Only about 1% of the body's total magnesium actually circulates in the blood, the rest is stored in bones and tissues. That means a laboratory result described as normal does not always reflect what is happening inside muscles or nerves. For this reason, many clinicians look at symptoms alongside lab work when deciding whether a trial of magnesium supplementation is worth attempting. The question, then, is where seniors should get magnesium. Food should always come first. Dark leafy greens, beans, whole grains, nuts, and seeds all carry significant amounts. A serving of spinach or pumpkin seeds provides a meaningful portion of the daily requirement. If diet alone doesn't reach the mark, supplements offer a backup option. But not all types work the same. Magnesium oxide, while inexpensive, is poorly absorbed and more likely to upset digestion. Forms like citrate, glycinate, or malate are better tolerated and absorbed more effectively, making them especially suitable for older adults. Choosing the right form ensures the body actually gets the benefit rather than sending most of it straight through. Timing can enhance results. Magnesium often works best when taken in the evening, since its natural calming effects support restful sleep. Some seniors prefer to split the dose, with a smaller portion in the morning and the rest before bed, to reduce the chance of stomach upset and improve absorption. Dosage is another area where caution matters. According to nutrition authorities, men over 50 need about 420 mg per day from all sources, while women in the same age group need around 320 mg. Much of this can be met through diet, but supplements can help cover shortfalls. For supplements, the upper safe limit is 350 mg a day from pills or powders. This does not include magnesium from food. Exceeding that amount regularly can trigger diarrhea or, in extreme cases, raise blood levels too high, especially in people with kidney disease. That is why it is essential for seniors with reduced kidney function to check with a doctor before taking magnesium supplements. With medical oversight, moderate doses are usually safe for those with normal kidney health. Medications remain an important factor to consider. As mentioned earlier, diuretics and acid-suppressing drugs can pull magnesium down. Some antibiotics and chemotherapy agents may interfere with it as well. This makes it especially valuable to review a medication list with a clinician if cramps, sleep problems, or palpitations are new or worsening. In some cases, adjusting the timing of medications and supplements is enough to limit depletion and restore balance. A practical way to approach this is to treat symptoms as a clue. If a senior suddenly begins experiencing leg cramps at night or feels unusual heart flutters, asking a physician to check magnesium levels is worthwhile. Even if blood tests appear normal, a short supervised trial of supplementation using lower doses, such as 100 to 200 mg of citrate or glycinate in the evening, can provide answers quickly. Improvement in sleep and reduction in cramps within a few weeks is often a sign that the body needed more. Without guidance, self-dosing with high amounts is not recommended, because side effects and interactions are easy to overlook. Magnesium has another advantage: affordability. Spinach, beans, almonds, and pumpkin seeds are inexpensive staples, and effective supplements like citrate and glycinate are widely available at reasonable prices. For seniors on a budget, shifting diet toward these foods is one of the simplest health upgrades available. Unlike more exotic supplements, magnesium does not require special branding or high costs to deliver meaningful benefits. What stands out is how much quality of life depends on keeping this mineral steady. Relaxed muscles, deeper sleep, steadier heartbeats, these are changes that matter in daily living. Magnesium is rarely marketed as a miracle, but in realistic, research-supported ways, it helps restore comfort and stability in later life. For seniors balancing multiple drugs and conditions, this kind of silent ally offers more improvement than many expect. Understanding magnesium's quiet but central role shows just how much changing physiology affects nutrient needs in later years. And it raises a larger question: if such a basic mineral can slip away almost unnoticed, what happens with nutrients that depend on sunlight and are already harder for the aging body to produce? Vitamin D3, the sunshine you can no longer make. Vitamin D3 stands out as one of the most important nutrients for older adults, yet it is one of the hardest to maintain. The reason is simple: as skin ages, its ability to produce vitamin D from sunlight declines sharply. Even with regular time outdoors, seniors generate far less than they did in their younger years. Add in the reality of spending more hours indoors, using sunscreen for skin protection, or living in northern climates with weaker winter sunlight, and deficiency becomes the norm rather than the exception. Vitamin D3 plays crucial roles across many systems. It directs calcium into the bones, helping preserve density and strength. It regulates inflammation so that tissues don't remain in a constant low-grade state of irritation. And it supports muscle function, mood, and immunity. When levels stay low, the consequences show up slowly but consistently. Seniors with inadequate vitamin D are more likely to experience frailty, loss of muscle tissue, weaker grip, impaired balance, and greater risk of falls. A fall at 70 or 80 is rarely minor. It often means fractures, hospitalization, or a lasting loss of mobility. Adequate vitamin D helps prevent that downward spiral by strengthening the foundations that make everyday movement safe. The brain also depends on vitamin D to stay resilient. Research links deficiency with higher rates of confusion, slower thinking, and cognitive decline in older adults. Because vitamin D influences neurotransmitter production and shields neurons from inflammatory damage, low levels leave the brain more vulnerable to age-related changes. Seniors sometimes notice subtle signs first, forgetting names, struggling to focus, or feeling down without clear reason. While it would be inaccurate to suggest vitamin D is the only factor, maintaining healthy levels consistently appears to support sharper memory and steadier mood. Vitamin D3 also shapes immune strength. Older adults short on vitamin D tend to catch viral infections more easily and recover more slowly. Respiratory illnesses in particular become more frequent and severe. At younger ages, a common cold might mean a week of inconvenience. In seniors, the same infection can trigger weeks of fatigue or even require hospitalization. Vitamin D primes immune cells to respond effectively without overreacting, which reduces the chance of complications. Consistently restoring levels has been shown to reduce both the frequency and severity of infections. Cardiovascular health is another area where deficiency creates hidden strain. Studies link low vitamin D to higher blood pressure, reduced flexibility of blood vessels, and higher rates of heart disease. Although researchers are still clarifying the exact pathways, vitamin D's role in calcium handling and vascular support makes a clear difference. Seniors with better vitamin D status generally show improved circulation and lower risk markers for heart strain. In real terms, that translates into smoother walks, better exercise tolerance, and fewer unexplained bouts of fatigue or shortness of breath. Diet alone is rarely enough to restore vitamin D once levels have fallen. Fatty fish like salmon or sardines, fortified dairy, and certain mushrooms all contain vitamin D, but not in quantities that reliably correct deficiency in older adults. That is why supplementation with D3, the form your skin would naturally make from sunlight, is usually the most practical and effective choice. D3 is more potent and more stable in the body than D2, making it the clear preference for seniors. How much to take is the critical question. Official recommendations set the daily allowance at 600 IU for adults between 51 and 70, and 800 IU for those 71 and older. In practice, however, many older adults require more to maintain optimal blood levels, commonly 1,000 to 2,000 IU daily. The best way to know if that range is right is through a blood test measuring 25-hydroxyvitamin D. That test reveals whether stores are sufficient, borderline, or truly deficient. A doctor can then advise on the correct dosage and follow up to ensure blood levels rise into the healthy range without creeping too high. Toxicity, though less common, is a real concern when supplements are taken without supervision. Very high, prolonged doses can raise calcium excessively in the blood, a condition called hypercalcemia. Symptoms can include kidney stones, nausea, confusion, or calcium deposits in blood vessels. The tolerable upper intake limit for adults is set at 4,000 IU, 100 micrograms, per day. Staying well below that level unless a clinician prescribes otherwise is the safest approach. For most seniors, working within the 800 to 2,000 IU range under medical guidance covers needs while avoiding excess. Medication interactions deserve attention as well. Certain statins may alter how vitamin D is processed. Thiazide diuretics, commonly prescribed for high blood pressure, can raise calcium levels when combined with high vitamin D intake. Bile acid sequestrants used for cholesterol management can interfere with absorption entirely. These examples show why checking with a pharmacist or doctor before starting or adjusting D3 supplements is essential. In most situations, timing adjustments or dose modifications are enough to keep everything balanced. The simplicity of vitamin D3 is one of its greatest strengths. It is inexpensive, widely available, and easy to take regularly. A single capsule with breakfast or a few drops under the tongue ensures steady intake. Unlike some supplements that must be taken in pairs or specific sequences, D3 is straightforward. For seniors juggling multiple medications and routines, that consistency matters. Better yet, improvements usually appear gradually in ways that enhance daily life: walking with more steadiness, sleeping more soundly, or fighting fewer colds through the winter. Affordability also counts. A supply of vitamin D3 often costs only a few dollars yet provides months of coverage. For those living on fixed incomes, this low-cost step offers disproportionately large benefits. While some expensive supplements promise miracle results with little evidence, D3 consistently proves its value in research and practice. Its impact touches bone strength, immune defense, cardiovascular support, and cognition, all areas that collectively determine independence as people age. The practical payoff of consistent use is clear. Seniors who correct low levels frequently notice that everyday exertion feels easier, that sleep feels more restorative, and that they weather seasonal illnesses better than before. These benefits accumulate quietly until the difference is unmistakable. By simply replacing what the body no longer produces, vitamin D3 helps restore balance to aging systems that rely on its presence. Vitamin D3 earns its place as a must-have supplement after 60 not because of hype, but because of need. It compensates for the decline in skin's production, strengthens defenses where they are weakest, and offers protection across multiple vital functions. Safe, affordable, and practical, it represents one of the clearest ways older adults can improve resilience and maintain independence. And while vitamin D3 helps keep the body stronger and the mind sharper, another nutrient often missing in seniors has a more direct link to memory loss itself. Sometimes what looks like the early stages of dementia is not aging at all, but a deficiency quietly robbing the brain of what it needs to function. Vitamin B12, the brain protector that disappears with age. Vitamin B12 is a nutrient with a direct line to brain and nerve health, yet it is one of the vitamins most likely to run low as people get older. The official recommended dietary allowance, RDA, for adults is just 2.4 micrograms per day, an amount most younger adults meet easily through meat, eggs, and dairy. But after 60, the challenge is not whether the food contains B12, it's whether the body can actually absorb it. With age, the system that unlocks B12 from food proteins slows down, leaving many older adults short even when their meals appear adequate. The problem lies in how absorption normally works. In the stomach, acids and enzymes break vitamin B12 free from the proteins in food. Then, a substance called intrinsic factor binds to it and carries it through the small intestine where it can finally be absorbed into the bloodstream. Past midlife, stomach acid production typically declines, reducing that first critical step. With less acid, less B12 is released from food, and with less intrinsic factor, even what does get released may not reach circulation efficiently. The result is an invisible shortage, not because people don't eat the vitamin, but because they can no longer extract it effectively. Common medications add another layer to the problem. Proton pump inhibitors and H2 blockers, often used for reflux or ulcers, are specifically designed to suppress stomach acid. In doing so, they also suppress the exact environment required to release B12 from food. Metformin, a first-line drug for type 2 diabetes, works differently but can interfere further down in the absorption process. Seniors frequently take one or both of these medications for years, which means their already less efficient systems become even less able to handle B12. This explains why deficiency is so widespread past 60, even in people who believe they are eating a balanced diet. When levels start dropping, the effects spread across both brain and body. One of the earliest warning signs is slowed thinking or trouble concentrating. Seniors may find themselves losing the thread of conversations, repeating questions, or struggling to recall simple details. These signs are often mistaken for natural memory decline, but they may reflect a starving nervous system. Physical symptoms also appear. Tingling or numbness in the feet and hands, imbalance while walking, or sudden episodes of weakness often trace back to low B12. Because these issues overlap with expectations of normal aging, they may never trigger testing until the deficiency has quietly worsened. Another pathway through which deficiency reveals itself is anemia. Without B12, red blood cells cannot form correctly. Instead of the smooth, efficient shapes that carry oxygen, the cells become oversized and malformed. Oxygen transport suffers, and fatigue follows. A person may feel winded after climbing stairs and assume the heart or lungs are to blame. Weakness spreads, rest feels unsatisfying, and energy gradually dwindles. All of this may look like heart disease or lung disease on the surface, yet the common thread in many cases is inadequate B12. The positive news is that correcting B12 usually corrects symptoms quickly, provided the deficiency is caught in time. Since the main barrier lies in digestion, the solution often bypasses it. Sublingual tablets that dissolve under the tongue, liquid sprays absorbed through the cheeks, and injections administered by a doctor skip the stomach and deliver B12 directly into the bloodstream. Many seniors describe a rapid return of focus, sharper memory, and more consistent energy once levels are restored. Balance and neuropathy take longer to resolve, but improvements are still common once nerves have steady supply again. Not all supplements are identical, however. Cyanocobalamin, the most widely sold form, is effective for many people but requires the body to convert it into active versions. Older adults sometimes struggle with this step. Methylcobalamin and adenosylcobalamin are already in active states, making them easier to use directly for those with reduced conversion capacity. Hydroxycobalamin, a form often given as an injection, stays in circulation longer and is valuable for seniors with severe shortages or ongoing absorption barriers. Choosing the form carefully, often with the guidance of a doctor or pharmacist, can make the difference between partial relief and a strong recovery of function. Testing is the best way to confirm deficiency. A basic blood test that measures serum B12 provides a starting point, but the picture can be incomplete. Levels within the low, normal range sometimes conceal underlying problems. That is why doctors may also check methylmalonic acid or homocysteine, markers that rise when B12 is functionally inadequate even if the blood reading looks passable. These tests are especially important for seniors taking acid-suppressing medications or metformin, where deficiency may hide behind ordinary numbers. The RDA of 2.4 micrograms per day is technically enough for most adults, but seniors often need supplemental help to reach that absorbed amount because their digestive systems are no longer efficient. When testing shows deficiency, clinicians decide whether higher oral doses or injections are appropriate. Injections are often prescribed when absorption is severely impaired, while higher dose oral or sublingual supplements can work well in other cases. The key point is not to guess at a dose but to confirm the need through testing and follow professional guidance on replacement. One red flag every senior should treat seriously is persistent memory changes, unexplained exhaustion, or ongoing numbness in hands and feet. These are not just routine signs of aging. They are potential warning signals that B12 is far below what the nervous system requires. Left untreated, deficiency can progress to permanent neurological damage that does not reverse even when supplements are taken later. Acting early preserves not only cognitive clarity but also mobility and independence in daily life. The cost of diagnosing and treating B12 deficiency is low, especially compared with the risks of leaving it unaddressed. Sublingual supplements are inexpensive, sprays are simple to use, and injections are available through clinics. The returns, however, are immense: clearer thought, renewed stamina, steadier balance, and reduced risk of falls and accidents. For older adults managing tight budgets, this is one of the most cost-effective ways to protect health and preserve daily function. The durability of the brain depends on many factors, from circulation and physical activity to diet and sleep. Yet vitamin B12 stands out as one of the most overlooked protectors. Because it quietly disappears with age and is often drained further by common medications, seniors must stay alert to its absence. Checking levels, watching for symptoms, and restoring supply before damage sets in may mean the difference between continued independence and decline. And while B12 protects the brain and nervous system, other nutrients provide equally critical protection in different areas of aging health. Some are linked not only to clearer thinking or stronger bones, but to longer life itself. In fact, certain fatty acids found in common foods have been connected in recent studies to reduced risk of death from all causes, offering seniors one of the most powerful ways to add healthy years. Omega-3s, the lifespan extender hiding in plain sight. Among the nutrients that shape long-term health in seniors, few carry as much consistent evidence as omega-3 fatty acids. Often described as quiet protectors, omega-3s from fish and certain plant sources support the heart, the brain, and the body's ability to manage chronic inflammation. Unlike short-term boosters that claim quick energy, their benefits appear gradually, stabilizing systems that matter most for independence after 60. The strongest focus has been on the forms known as EPA, eicosapentaenoic acid, and DHA, docosahexaenoic acid. EPA reduces low-grade inflammation within blood vessels, helping arteries stay more flexible and easing pressure on the heart. DHA integrates into brain cell membranes, keeping them fluid and able to communicate efficiently. Together, they influence circulation, cognition, and joint health, the very areas where seniors most often feel decline. When omega-3 intake remains steady, people notice subtle yet important improvements: steadier energy during the day, less joint stiffness upon waking, and more clarity during tasks that require focus. One reason omega-3s play a unique role is their ability to reduce the type of inflammation that lingers with age. Nearly everyone past 60 carries some degree of chronic inflammation, whether from arthritis, cardiovascular stress, or metabolic changes. Unlike the heat and swelling from an infection or sprain, this background inflammation simmers unnoticed for years, gradually harming tissues. Omega-3s provide the raw material for compounds called resolvins and protectins. These signaling molecules help quiet inflammation and begin tissue repair. The changes are not instant, but over months arteries work with less strain, joints regain some mobility, and nerve cells function with greater efficiency. Research has shown consistent links between higher blood levels of omega-3s and better health outcomes in seniors. Several large observational studies have found that older adults with greater circulating levels of EPA and DHA tend to live longer, with lower rates of cardiovascular disease, stroke, and other serious conditions. A 2024 analysis again suggested that maintaining healthy omega-3 levels is associated with reduced overall mortality. That said, randomized trials testing supplements in more specific patient groups have sometimes shown mixed results. This means omega-3s are not cures or guarantees, but they remain one of the more reliable nutrients linked to broad protection, especially when intake is part of an overall balanced diet. Despite their importance, many modern diets provide far too little. The shift toward processed foods has introduced large amounts of omega-6 fats from oils such as soybean, corn, and sunflower. While omega-6 fats are not harmful on their own, they compete directly with omega-3s for the same enzymes in the body. When omega-6 dominates, omega-3 activity is blocked, leaving inflammation unchecked. This imbalance is now regarded as a major driver of joint pain, cardiovascular strain, and even cognitive decline in older adults. To correct this, guidelines recommend at least 2 servings of fatty fish per week. Salmon, sardines, mackerel, and herring are reliable, widely available sources of EPA and DHA. For seniors who prefer simple, affordable options, canned sardines and mackerel are standouts. They cost only a few dollars, store easily, and contain far less mercury than larger fish like tuna or swordfish. Just 1 or 2 cans a week can meaningfully raise omega-3 levels without straining retirement budgets. For those who avoid fish, plant-based foods still provide support. Flax seeds, chia seeds, and walnuts contain alpha-linolenic acid, ALA, which the body can convert in small amounts to EPA and DHA. While conversion is limited, steady inclusion of these plants adds another layer of intake. Grinding flax into oatmeal or yogurt, adding walnuts to a salad, or sprinkling chia seeds into a smoothie are modest habits that fit easily into daily routines. For a direct vegetarian option, algal oil, derived from marine algae, supplies DHA without relying on fish and often comes at a lower cost than premium fish oil products. Fish oil capsules remain a common choice, especially for those unwilling or unable to change diet. High-quality capsules provide steady amounts of EPA and DHA in concentrated form. The main caution is that not all products are equivalent. Some lower-cost options spoil quickly or lack third-party testing for purity. Seniors who choose supplements should look for labels confirming independent quality checks. Still, replacing some supplements with inexpensive canned fish often offers both nutritional and financial advantages. Another point to keep in mind is that omega-3s function best with consistency. A single large serving does less than smaller, regular amounts over weeks and months. Laboratory measures of omega-3 buildup in blood and tissue rise gradually, and the health impacts track that slow climb. For seniors expecting rapid changes, this distinction matters. Omega-3s are protectors for the long term, not fast-acting drugs. Benefits appear in steadier heartbeats, lower blood pressure readings, and memory that holds firm into later years, not overnight effects. Safety is generally favorable, but one group should take particular care. At high supplemental doses, omega-3s can slightly thin the blood. For most individuals, this poses no concern. However, seniors on anticoagulant medications, commonly prescribed after strokes or for clotting disorders, should confirm dosage with a physician. This does not mean avoiding omega-3s, but coordinating intake so that protective benefits do not overlap with medication risks. Most clinicians encourage modest use but prefer to adjust exact amounts based on blood tests and prescriptions already in place. Affordability remains central for many older adults. A common concern is whether sustainable omega-3 intake requires expensive capsules marketed with health claims. In reality, it does not. Canned sardines, mackerel, or herring provide the same nutrients at a fraction of the price and bring with them natural minerals such as calcium and selenium. Shifting just 2 weekly meals toward these foods meets most established dietary targets without adding another bottle to the supplement drawer. The simplicity of this substitution often surprises seniors who believed omega-3s required constant pill use. At the population level, higher omega-3 consumption is one of the clearest dietary markers of health. Seniors who adjust their intake through fish, plants, or modest supplements consistently show lowered inflammatory markers, better cardiovascular resilience, and preserved cognition measured over years. Not every study reports identical results, but when considered together, the data points strongly to omega-3s being among the safest and most effective dietary supports for aging adults. What stands out most is how achievable better intake really is. Small daily adjustments, adding chia to breakfast, choosing sardines for lunch twice a week, or keeping walnuts on hand as a snack, build meaningful reserves of these fats in the body. These minor habit changes translate into steadier energy, stronger protection of the heart and brain, and an easier time maintaining independence into later age. Unlike many health promises marketed to seniors, omega-3s deliver results quietly and consistently, grounded in decades of research rather than trends. For older adults navigating which supplements matter most, the message about omega-3s is simple: they earn their place. Whether through diet or well-chosen supplements, they provide protection where it matters most, at a cost that can fit almost any budget. Used wisely, they supply one of the clearest paths to supporting longevity and keeping day-to-day life more resilient. Yet nutrition alone is not enough. Pills, powders, and even food-based choices only help when the body can actually absorb and use them. The order in which supplements are taken, how they interact, and whether they conflict with medications can make the difference between real benefit and wasted effort. That challenge leads directly to the next essential step: understanding how to take supplements so they work together instead of against one another. Practical guide, timing, interactions, and budget tips. Making supplements work safely and effectively is less about how many pills you take and more about how, when, and with what you take them. For seniors, timing, combinations, and product quality are just as important as choosing the right nutrients in the first place. Small adjustments here often mean the difference between real benefits and wasted effort, or worse, hidden harm. Think of the core rules as a simple checklist. Each point is straightforward, but together they help prevent the most common mistakes older adults make with their supplements. The goal is not to complicate your daily routine, but to give you the kind of practical structure that keeps pills working with your body instead of against it. Take fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K with a meal that includes some dietary fat, such as eggs, nuts, dairy, or olive oil, to ensure they are absorbed properly. Take magnesium in the evening, when its natural calming effect supports sleep quality and helps prevent nighttime cramping. Separate iron and calcium by at least 2 to 4 hours, since they compete for absorption, and never take calcium within that same time window as thyroid medications. Avoid stacking B6 across multiple multivitamins, energy blends, and powders. Cumulative intake can build silently toward dangerous levels for the nerves. When new or unexplained symptoms appear, or before starting any high-dose supplement long-term, request blood tests for vitamin D, vitamin B12, and ferritin so you know your actual status rather than guessing. Each rule serves as protection against a problem that otherwise shows up later as fatigue, poor sleep, or side effects seniors often misinterpret as just aging. Following these basics helps ensure that the effort you put into supplementation pays off in how you feel day to day. Quality and cost are the next hurdles. Not every supplement bottle deserves your trust, and price alone is no guide. What matters most is independent, third-party verification that confirms the pill contains what it claims. Seals from groups like NSF, USP, or Consumer Lab indicate that batches have been tested for potency and screened for contaminants. Without those seals, quality is uncertain no matter what the label promises. For older adults aiming to stretch their budget, the best tip is to replace unnecessary pills with affordable, nutrient-rich foods. Sardines, for example, supply omega-3s at a fraction of the cost of capsules. Yogurt, greens, and fortified plant milks cover calcium without expensive tablets. Leafy vegetables, beans, and nuts provide magnesium at the table instead of the pharmacy shelf. Food-first options not only work better for digestion but also protect limited retirement savings. Shopping decisions should center on a very short list of essentials, not an overflowing medicine cabinet. For most seniors, priority goes to vitamin D3, vitamin B12 if deficient, magnesium if sleep or cramping suggest a need, and omega-3s for heart and brain protection. Beyond that, additional pills are rarely necessary unless a doctor has documented another gap. Cutting out extras reduces risk, simplifies routines, and saves money immediately. What matters most is consistency with a smaller, targeted group of proven nutrients. Timing routines should also fit into daily life without becoming overwhelming. For example, a senior might take vitamin D3 at breakfast, paired with a source of healthy fat, B12 in mid-morning with water, magnesium in the evening with dinner or before bed, and omega-3s with whichever meal includes oils or fish. This spacing minimizes conflicts, improves absorption, and spreads intake more evenly across the day. Adjustments like these are not about perfection, they're about making it easier to remember pills, reducing digestive upset, and strengthening the connection between supplements and actual health benefits. Organization helps too, but only when based on intention rather than habit. A pill organizer should not be treated as something to fill for the sake of filling. Fewer, better-timed supplements are more effective than a box stuffed with duplicates. Lighter morning loads and separated doses throughout the day lower the sense of overwhelm, making it easier to stick to a plan long-term. Perhaps the most important habit is communication. Many older adults keep quiet about their supplement use during doctor visits, either from assuming it isn't relevant or worrying about criticism. In reality, clinicians can help only when they know the full picture. Bringing a complete list of every pill, prescription, over-the-counter, and supplement to your next checkup removes guesswork. Pharmacists and doctors can then check for dangerous overlaps, unnecessary dosages, or timing conflicts. That one step prevents the most serious interactions and lets you adjust based on objective medical feedback rather than trial and error. When something feels off, memory lapses, unusual fatigue, or unexplained cramps, blood work is a safer guide than self-prescribing new supplements. A single test for vitamin D levels, B12, or ferritin can clarify whether the issue is deficiency, overload, or something unrelated. Acting with information rather than guesswork prevents prolonged harm and means you aren't wasting money chasing solutions that don't address the real problem. The larger lesson is that supplementation works best when stripped down to essentials, properly timed, carefully separated from medications, and double-checked for safety. It doesn't take elaborate regimens to feel the difference, just a small set of smart rules, consistent practice, and willingness to ask providers for guidance. When seniors begin using supplements as precise tools instead of broad guesses, the results become clear: steadier sleep, calmer nerves, more reliable energy, and sharper focus. Each pill finds its place instead of creating confusion. And with a trimmed-down roster of nutrients, the costs stay manageable, a priority for many older adults balancing health on fixed incomes. These adjustments are modest, but they add up to something profound. Once pills are organized by timing, verified for quality, pared down for budget, and checked against medications, supplements finally become what they were promised to be: a support system for stronger, healthier aging. And by combining those practical steps with the right choices on which vitamins to avoid and which ones to keep, you gain a clearer path forward, one that builds real strength, clarity, and independence as the years advance. The main takeaway is clear: some vitamins protect health in later years while others create avoidable risks. The real progress comes from treating supplements as tools to be used carefully, not habits to follow blindly. Review your supplement list tonight, step by step. Remove any product that contains preformed vitamin A, iron unless your doctor prescribed it, high-dose B6, or calcium taken without vitamin D3 and K2 to guide it. Then, schedule a blood test or talk with your clinician or pharmacist about your current routine. Did you find iron or retinol hiding in your senior multivitamin? Tell us in the comments, but don't post medication names. And as always, consult your healthcare provider before stopping or starting any supplement to make sure the plan fits your individual needs.